guys. As you may have been able to hear, I have the baby in the crib right next to me. That's just what kind of day it's been. I was basically not going to get this video filmed unless I just stuck her in there and let her do her thing while I did mine. So I really hope that it doesn't bother you guys while we do this video and talk about today's topic. If it does, then I'm really sorry. I'm gonna try to not make a habit out of this, but if you're a mom, you know mom life, you probably get it and you're like, yes girl, do what you need to do. But today we are going to be talking about books that I read that helped me cultivate a mindset of positivity and excitement around my labor and delivery. I will link my pregnancy experience video up here if you are interested in at all in seeing that. I did not have the best pregnancy experience ever, to be quite honest, but I absolutely loved my labor and delivery. Although that really shocks my mom when I talk to her about it, and she felt like it was a really traumatic experience, I guess. I don't know, like from being from her side of watching it, she felt like it was negative, but I actually going through it felt very positive about it. So I wanted to just kind of share how I got in that mindset. I know there's a lot of misconceptions of labor and delivery and a lot of just a mindset of fear surrounding it. And to be honest, a lot of women who have negative concepts of labor and delivery are going to have negative experiences. And that's because our minds are literally that powerful that they can actually predict the outcome of what's going to happen because we're thinking of it in that way, which is absolutely amazing when you think of the good that you can do for yourself just by having a certain outlook. So I really want to be able to share my tips with you guys because I loved my labor and delivery, and I want every other mom to experience that as well. And just like for your information, like I didn't necessarily have an easy labor and delivery. Like I said, my mom thought it was a traumatic experience from her perspective. I was rushed to the OR. I almost had an emergency C-section because of my heart rate and the baby's heart rate. And I gave birth on a really like skinny, thin, flat OR bed. So if you've ever given birth, you can probably picture how much more difficult that was. But even with that, like, it was still overall a really positive experience. So I'm gonna stop rambling. Although I do want to just also say, like, I was so excited to make this video and I want to make others like it because I absolutely love reading, and I love reading things that are super practical and that will help me in practical things in life. So if you love reading, then hopefully you will enjoy these types of videos. Subscribe to my channel and give it a like, and hopefully you won't miss any of my future videos like this. So okay, for real this time, let's get into it. So I guess we'll just start. I haven't really planned this. She really wants to get her 2 cents in. But I haven't planned this too in-depth. I really just have the stack of books here that I read, and I'm just gonna talk about them really quickly so that you guys can get an idea what to expect when you're expecting. This book was just really good to make you aware of the different like medical things that can happen, you know, just like what your body is actually going through, what to eat, what to look out for, what symptoms you might be having that mean this different thing or that different thing. I honestly did not read every single page of this. It's a pretty thick book, and to be honest, I found it pretty redundant. I had the Bump pregnancy app, and I know some people have other ones, and I found it pretty redundant to that. I read everything that my app said. like every little update. It came out, if you have the bump, you know, it has certain articles and things as well, and I would read quite a few of those, so I found this pretty redundant. But yeah, so if you have an app like that, maybe you won't find this book super helpful, but there were definitely things talked about this much more in depth than what was in my app, you know, what they felt like I needed updated. And to be honest, I didn't have the greatest OB. I went to 3 different clinics, and honestly, I didn't love any of them. So I found that this was the best. Like, this practically was my OBGYN. And it does continue into some things of, you know, directly postpartum, but I know that she also has another book of like the newborn into toddler years and all that stuff, so I'm definitely gonna get that book and read it as well. But yeah, it says that it's America's Pregnancy Bible, and that's basically what it is. And this is by Heidi Murkoff, and it's called What to Expect When You're Expecting. So yeah, I feel like this is pretty much a staple. I don't even know, I don't need to say that much more about this. I feel like I've already said a little bit too much about it. If you're pregnant, you probably already have that book and you don't need me to suggest it to you, but I figured I would throw it in there because I did read it. All right, moving on. I have this book called Baby Catcher by Peggy Vincent. This book was by far the best book I read for myself. When I first got pregnant, I started looking into natural births. I was just really nervous about getting an epidural for some reason. I really didn't want to. And I felt like, I don't know, like, why put myself through unnecessary medical traumas? Like, birth is already traumatic enough. Like, why add these extra things? I don't know, that's just the way I looked at it, and I was like, I just want my body to go through the bare minimum, and I felt like that was just having a natural birth, that would be going through the bare minimum for my body. And so I started looking into a lot of stories. I started talking to people who had done natural births before, and my sister-in-law actually suggested this book to me, as well as the next book I'm going to talk about called Birthing from Within. But I loved this book. It was written by a midwife who actually studied like not midwifery, like she was a baby nurse at Duke Hospital quite a while ago, like in the 60s or something. And it goes through her journey of going from being a nurse and being on the more medical side to, like, she went to California during kind of like the whole hippie movement and stuff, and got into midwifery, and then like became a like practicing midwife in a hospital, and just all different kinds of things. She had like birthing classes that she used to teach and things like that. So she really has been through it all. And honestly, most of this is just stories of her clients. And like, I don't know, the reason I think I started to get into it really deeply was because I realized that the women who had given natural births often had more positive things to say about their birth experience than women who gave birth in a hospital with medication. So I don't know, I just found that correlation for myself, and you may be thinking, oh, I had medication, I had the best birth story ever, or I didn't have medication and my birth was terrible. I don't know where you are on that spectrum, or if you know people that are opposite from what I'm saying. I'm just saying in general, that's what I found to be true. And this book really reaffirms that idea. And honestly, it just put me in a mindset of like, anyone can do this. Like, this is what my body was made to do. This is what women did for thousands of years. They gave birth in their home, surrounded by women, without medication. And obviously, death during delivery was a lot more common back then. And I knew the whole time I didn't want to give birth at home. I wanted to give birth in a hospital because the closest tertiary hospital facility is 30 minutes away from me. And the closest like good one that I trusted was an hour away. And so I didn't want to give birth at home just in case. And I didn't know that much about like midwife services around me. I didn't really feel comfortable going that route. Now that I've been through the pregnancy experience, I wish that I could go back in time and tell myself to use a midwife, because like I said, I didn't have the best experience with my obstetricianists or whatever they're called. I just felt like I wasn't getting very personalized care. I felt like they didn't want to get to know me or my background or my story, and just like, I don't know, I just didn't really feel like, it almost felt like if I didn't know the questions to ask and if I didn't have a list of questions to ask, we weren't going to have a conversation at all. Literally, one of my OBs, the second one that I had, at one point she came in and she had like an assistant and a medical student, and like there was like 4 people in the room. They all walked in. She literally like examined my stomach, listened to the baby's heartbeat, asked me what I was naming the baby, said, "Oh, that's a really cute name," and then was like, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I guess not." And she was like, "Okay, have a good day," and left. And I was like, I waited like 30 minutes in the waiting room, and then like, you know, got my weight taken, my blood pressure, got all this stuff done to wait to see you, and you're gonna be in here for less than 2 minutes. Like that, I don't know, that seemed really odd to me. So I just didn't really feel like I got that personalized care. And you know, when you're with a midwife, somebody who's done this hundreds of times, and they are the ones taking care of you, not a nurse. Not that there's anything wrong with nurses, and I had amazing nurses. And the people that helped me give birth, I had never met them before I went to the hospital. Like, we had our appointments an hour away in Chapel Hill, but none of those people were the ones who gave birth, like helped me give birth. They weren't there for any point in my pregnancy. I don't know if that's normal, if there are some practices that have ones that do like the maternity care and then other ones that do like the delivery care. I don't know if that's normal. All I can go off really is my own personal experience, and that's what it was. And I felt like that was weird. I feel like I've more heard women talk about like meeting with the doctor that's going to deliver their child, unless like they just happen to be out of town or sick or something like extreme comes up. Basically, all that to say, if I had gone with a midwife, I feel like I would have gotten more personalized care. I feel like I would have known the person delivering my child. I feel like it definitely would have helped me feel even more safe and even more comfortable, and to feel like we had a plan. I don't know. I do wish that I would go back and at least look into getting a midwife. I know it can seem kind of like nerve-wracking and scary for some reason, but I definitely wish that I would have looked into it. And if I ever get pregnant again, I am definitely going to look into midwife services. But yeah, this book definitely helped a ton. It got me in a good mindset. It made me feel like, of course I can do it. Like why would I not be able to? All these women could do it. I can do it too. So I definitely recommend this book. Honestly, it's interesting. Like, it's stories. Like, it's not like a woman telling you a bunch of like medical information. There's stories in here, and it's just, oh, I don't know. It's such a good read. It's such a good read. If you take anything away from this, read this book, especially if you're scared of delivering a baby. Read this book, Baby Catcher, Peggy Vincent. It's on Amazon for a few bucks. Just get it, okay? You'll thank me later. So the other book that I was talking about was called Birthing from Within by Pam England and Rob Horowitz. So this is not as much story-based. This is a little bit more of like the, a little bit more of the medical parts of it. Honestly, it's almost a little bit more of like the history of birth. It's a little bit more of like how different cultures do things. And, you know, just different, I feel like this book probably is very similar to like hypnobirthing material. If you don't know what hypnobirthing is, I also watched a ton of videos of moms who had gone through hypnobirthing. I never specifically went to a hypnobirthing class or watched a hypnobirthing person on YouTube. I just heard people recount their experiences with it. And it's very like natural birth inclined. It's very like holistic in its teaching, and it definitely focuses on your mindset going into birth. You know, why do you feel afraid of this? This is a natural process. You know, what is so scary about birthing naturally, the way nature intended it? And if you believe in God, then the way God intended it. Like, there's nothing to fear in that. And I think hypnobirthing, kind of the name, actually puts people off from it, but I don't think it's as like, ooh, like, it's not about like hypnotizing people. From what I gather, it's really just about changing your mindset. So anyway, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's pretty much what hypnobirthing is. And to be honest, I didn't read every single page of this book. I really loved the other book a lot better and felt like I got what I needed from that. And so I just kind of skimmed through the parts that I wanted to read of this book. But I did find it interesting. There was a lot of tidbits in here. Just like things that made me just think about things differently. One notable thing is that it made me think about like a little bit more of like remembering that I'm going through this as well. I think labor and delivery can be so focused on the baby, especially postpartum, like everything's focused on the baby. And this book really reminded me that like I'm going through this too. Like, this isn't just about the baby I'm bringing into the world. It's also about me. And postpartum, like, the baby has gone through something traumatic, but so have I. And it made me feel affirmed in the fact that, like, I could be, like, I could focus on myself a little bit more after giving birth. So that's this book. Super interesting. I would definitely say read the other one first and then read this one if you have time, or at least that's what I did. So there's that one. So I've got one more to share with you guys. Little Miss just really was wanting attention, so here we are. But I've just got one more book, and it's actually, I read it digitally, so I don't have like a copy to show you. And honestly, like, I have to go like way back into like my email files to even like find it, because it was emailed to me from my geneticist after we got her diagnosis. But I thought that this really fit the theme well, because the title of this video is about, like, you know, eliminating fear from the delivery process. And if you had a prenatal diagnosis, you probably have fear on multiple different levels, and I think that that definitely should be acknowledged in this video, especially from a mom who got a prenatal diagnosis. I know how scary it can be. And reading that book, honestly, it was called Diagnosis to Delivery. I've talked about it in a couple of my other videos, and you know, it really just makes you feel affirmed in your own feelings of what you're going through, your own emotions. It lets you know that, like, what you're going through, however you're handling it, is completely normal. It lets you know the options that you have. But most of all, the thing that touched me about that book was the family stories, specifically the stories from siblings who were like just talking about how positively their sibling with Down syndrome impacted their family and their communities. And honestly, it was in that moment that I started to feel honored to be able to have a child that could bring that much joy and that much inspiration to the people around them. And she's just so precious. I mean, like, I don't know, looking back, I'm like, how was I ever afraid of having her? You know, like, just look at the beautiful face. She's just so perfect. But I mean, I was afraid, and I felt very intimidated to have a child that had special needs. And that book was the first step to making me not have fear or anxiety about it. And you know, if you read it and you're still not there, that's obviously perfectly fine. Like, process at your own pace. But if you are in that situation that I was in just a short time ago, I would definitely recommend reading that book. And I have other books that I read just postpartum that were more about raising a child with Down syndrome or just raising a child in general. So if you are interested to see that video, make sure you do subscribe so that you can see when I put it out. You can see what I recommend, especially if this video was helpful, and I hope it was. So I will leave you guys there, and I'll see you in the next one.